And this is Judge Alyssa Perez resuming the civil docket for January 11th, 2023. I'll go ahead and call it. Calling cause number 2022 DCV 1735, Wells Fargo Bank versus Elizabeth Lozano. May I have announcements of counsel, please?
Benjamin Joseph Gutierrez on behalf of Wells Fargo, ready to proceed on the motion for default judgment.
Okay, and Ms. Lozano is physically present in the courtroom in the 210th District Court. However, she does not speak English and does not have an attorney. And so, Mr. Gutierrez, have you been in touch with Ms. Lozano at all?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I am going to reset this for 30 days for a status. I'll go ahead and have my staff inform her of the reset. I don't know, Mr. Gutierrez, if you're going to be getting in touch with her or not. We'll explain to her a little bit more of the process and get her contact information.
Understood, Your Honor.
All right. Señora Lozano, si se quiere hablar con la coordinadora de la corte, le van a dar otro, oh my gosh, I can't speak Spanish. Le van a informar del proceso que sigue, okay? All right. Okay. Are you also on 0694? Mr. Gutierrez?
No.
Who's on 0694? Bottom of page 2.
For that one, they submitted, sorry, I'm a little sick. They submitted a notice of non-suit, so I put it as a tentative cancellation, but there isn't, order hasn't been signed, I don't think. So they might have thought they don't need to show up.
Do we have an order?
It doesn't look like they e-filed one.
Okay. Ms. Hernandez, will you please contact plaintiffs for an order on the non-suit?
Yes, ma'am, she's speaking to defendant over here, but I'll let her know, Judge.
Who's next? What about top of page 5, Cavalry SPV, default hearing?
Also attempted to call Miss Janet Ray at
Mr. Gutierrez, are you covering 1419?
I'm sorry, what was the cause number, Your Honor? I am here for a Calvary case, but
2022 DCV 1419?
yes, Your Honor.
Call it.
in cause number 2022 DCV 1419 Calvary SPI LLC et al. Versus Jesse Esterline. Announcement of counsel, please.
Benjamin Joseph Gutierrez on behalf of the plaintiff, ready to proceed on the motion for default judgment.
Anyone here on behalf of Jesse Esterline?
Nobody in the waiting room.
Mr. Gutierrez, you may proceed.
May it please the court. Your Honor, we're asking for redress in the amount of $2,712.38. We're asking the court take judicial notice of the file that's in front of it. Therein, there's documents that will show that this was a home furnishing line of credit that was afforded to the defendant. The account ends in 5116. Also within the documents is a business records affidavit from Miss Carol Canella. Therein, Miss Canella attests to the account and provides the grounds for the redress that we're seeking. There's also a bill of sale as Exhibit A of the business records affidavit. The last payment was in August of 2018, and the account was charged off in February of 2019. The defendant was personally served this lawsuit on April 17th of last year, so that's 2022. That address is the same address that the statements were going to on the home furnishing accounts, and that's a Montera Road address. We also have the non-military status affidavit, and I believe the certificate of last known address for the court's consideration, Your Honor. We're asking for the aforementioned damages plus court costs and post-judgment interest.
All right, the court will take judicial notice of the file as well as the exhibits that were attached to the motion for default. Default will be granted. Mr. Gutierrez, please send over the corresponding order for signature and filing.
Understood, Your Honor.
All right, who's next?
Top of page 8. In cause number 2020 DCV 2345, David Jones versus El Paso.
So let me stop right there because I see Ms. Hegeman is logging in.
I apologize, Judge.
What are all the cases that we were waiting for Ms. Hegeman on? Marufo.
Top of page 2, Judge.
All right, let's start there because the attorney's fee hearing is going to take a little bit more. My apologies, gentlemen.
Your Honor, because these apparently were filed as DCV cases, Susan didn't set them. Usually I get a docket because because we have hundreds of cases. So I don't even know which cases we have set today.
So what I have here, and let's see, there's 1, 2, I thought there were 3 cause numbers 2022. I don't know if they need to be reassigned. They're 2022 DCV 2306, 2022 DCV 2274. And I thought there was one more.
One on page 6, Judge.
Mhm.
Cause number 2022 DCV 2691.
Yeah, I'm not sure how these were sent over. Let me see.
Um,
And maybe these are some that, Myrna, if you're receiving them as activations for the regular court docket. I mean, I think that's what you're telling me, right, Ms. Hegeman, that these belong underneath the tax court CAD docket? Is that?
right. And apparently, when they were filed, they weren't coded as tax cases, and the
Mhm.
district clerk doesn't pick all of them up. And so they go into DCV, they go in onto the regular rotation.
Mhm.
And I understand that now you're getting all the what was it, 327
Correct. Mhm.
cases. Usually I get, Susan sends me the docket for the tax cases. I don't have this docket. I'm
I
sorry.
understand. I understand. So I guess I'm just confused and we'll need to figure out between Suzanne and Myrna what needs to happen. Maybe it's through the clerk's office to recode these cases because I don't know all the technical matters of how they get to us, but clearly Ms. Hernandez received these and they became part of the regular court docket rather than the tax court docket. So yes, ma'am.
If I may, just to let you know, these cases were set way before we even knew we were going to handle tax
Yeah,
cases.
and that
They're
was my
pending
recollection. That was my
our
recollection,
civil
Myrna,
docket.
because if I'm not mistaken, even back in December, we had one CAD case. And I believe that's when Ms. Hegeman appeared and I think you were sick. And I remember thinking at the time, why are we receiving these when we had not yet, well, we had no clue we were going to be a tax.
These are
court.
pending, Judge, these are pending from our pending civil docket of the open cases that we had.
Okay, so I'm gonna need, maybe Suzanne and Myrna can coordinate and maybe get with the clerks because these I believe should not be here. So I don't know if there's some other issue. Ms. Hegeman, so who is attached to those cases? I think, is it Mr. Jones and Mr. McClelland?
I am attached to those cases, and when
Yeah.
when we initially filed the petition on these cases, and the cause number came back. And some of our cases are DTX, and some of them, we have plenty of cases in El Paso against EPCAT. Some of them are DCV and some of them are DTX. And I called specifically asking about this issue, and I was told it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, well, Mr. Jones, I'm new to this. I think we were just designated at the beginning of this year. So I have a lot of question marks as well. What I know is that we're going to have to batch. I don't know if there's more cases, right? This is for today. There might be more because they have to be replaced. So I'm going to have to get with both Ms. Fierro and Ms. Hernandez and maybe our clerk to find out what's going on here. So for now, yeah, none of these cases should be on this docket today. So I don't have a reset either. Maybe we'll do the 18th. I'm not sure. Ms. Fierro has the docket scheduling for that. So I'll have to touch base with them to see how we follow up. But this is not the time when we would be hearing those cases.
Okay, so I can just ignore this DWAP setting for today.
Yes, I don't know that it was a DWAP, but
It was sitting as a DWAP / scheduling conference, and it kind of scared me. So I'm glad that it's not an actual DWAP hearing. Thank you, Your Honor.
all right, Mr.
And
Jones, Mr. McClellan,
Yes.
if you have just in your, it sounds like you have a lot of these cases. If you
Yes.
see any other DCVs, this is what I would ask. If you would please email both Ms. Fierro and Ms. Hernandez and myself. If you have on your docket or whatever, however you organize your cases and you see a batch of DCVs that are coming out of this court, then please, that will help identify how many cases we have that are I guess, numbered. I'm not really sure how they did that.
Classified.
Your Honor, and if I may suggest that not only for your court, but any DCV tax cases, if Ms. Fierro and, well, essentially it's Ms. Fierro that she would be notified, because she's been a huge help in keeping track of them as I don't know why, I don't know what happened within the last year, but prior to last year, the tax cases were consistently being set in the tax courts. Every so often, one would stray somehow or another. But the last few months, we've had multiple DCB tax cases. I don't know what's going on, maybe with the clerk's office or with the coding when they're filed. I don't know.
We'll have to look into that. Thank you, Ms. Hegeman. Mr. McClellan and Mr. Jones, thank you for your patience today, but you all are excused.
Thank you for your time, Your Honor. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Carmen.
Thank you, Judge. You have a
Thank
good
you.
Ms. Hegeman, the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so we need to get moving. Who's next?
Top up a J, Judge. In cause number 2020 DCV 2345, David Jones versus El Paso Cowboy Construction LLC et al. Announcement of council, please.
Robert Rios on behalf of the plaintiff, David Jones.
And Harold Davis on behalf of the defendants, all but El Paso Cowboy Construction and PC Builders. It's the three defendants subject of the Rule 91 motions.
Okay, and we're talking about, let me see, the attorney's fees. I did receive, even I think yesterday or Monday, Mr. Davis's response to your reply or reply to your response, Mr. Riojas. And part of, I just want to make sure I understand, Mr. Riojas, that you're not conceding that they're entitled to, and I mean amongst three, to the attorney's fees, because I know Mr. Davis pointed out that there was a lot made of the amount and the proving up of the fees, but I want to make sure I understand your position on those. And then I want to also focus on Sadia's fees, attorney's fees.
Well, Your Honor, if you recall at the last hearing, there was an issue about whether the awarding of fees was discretionary or not. And I think we've clarified that it is a discretionary determination by the court. And I believe I presented or attempted to present to the court background of how we got to where we were, the fact that we needed at least disclosures from these defendants to determine their relationship to this job site. If you recall, this was essentially a premises liability case. There was a hole in the flooring that my client fell through. According to his employer didn't place that hole. I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of that. I might have one suggestion, Your Honor. There's a special exceptions hearing scheduled next week in this court that was just recently filed by Mr. Davis. In their most recent or his most recent reply, he made himself or suggested that he would present himself for testimony, for some cross-examination to better address the specifics of the attorney's fees as they relate to these very specific defendants that you agreed could be dismissed under their Rule 91 motion. So if Mr. Davis is willing to do that, if the court could accommodate us next week, it might be easier for us to present these arguments and allow Mr. Davis to present some testimony on the contested fees. I didn't mean to avoid your question, but going back to the original suggestion that we acknowledged or concede that the fees have to be paid, I don't believe I've ever said that. It was something I did suggest to the court or mention to the court, but even more so was the fact that the way that they presented, Mr. Davis presented these attorney's fees is inconsistent with the Supreme Court case that I provided to Your Honor. I believe it was hand delivered as part of our response. And so it's my position that this attempted lodestar methodology hasn't been properly asserted or proven up by Mr. Davis. We still have invoices and I attempted to outline some of those in my response. Some of these entries are global entries for a couple of the defendants that were not dismissed by Your Honor. And so we still have that issue. I don't believe it's my responsibility to segregate those fees. I believe it's Mr. Davis's burden. And then, of course, there's also the issue of the hourly rate, which we've also raised with Your Honor.
I thought also, at least what's coming to my mind is on Sadia's fees, that there were some outside the date range. I think there were some April 2022 fees. Is that what you referenced as well? That I guess Sadia wasn't even served up until that point. I think that was one issue.
If I go back to my response, I did note that on April 25th, for example, there was 1.6 hours of time that was requested that predates when Sadia was even served with the lawsuit. They were served on April 29th. On June 7th, it filed its answer. But the invoice that was presented by Mr. Davis included, again, just sort of global request for time on April 25th, which was prior to the date that Sadia was even served.
Okay. So in terms of Mr. Davis, your thoughts on that January 18th, basically reset?
Well, I'll be glad if he's asking me to come down live to testify as opposed to the affidavit, I'll be glad to do so, Your Honor.
I think I'm good with that. And so the only thing I'm looking at is scheduling. You all are scheduled for 10 a.m. on the special exceptions. I think because I will have a Zoom docket. Are you all able to accommodate an in-person at 8:30?
I'm available at that time, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so let's switch out and add the attorney fee hearing and the special exception hearing to begin at 8:30 in person 1 week from today.
Okay.
Okay,
Very well, Your Honor.
gentlemen, thank you for your patience today.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll see you next week.
See
Thank
you
you,
next
Mr.
week.
Davis.
Okay, who's next?
Towards the bottom of page 8, Judge. In cause number 2022 DCV 2240 GECU versus Maximiliano Perez. Announcement of council, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Carlos Miranda for GECU.
Good morning. Bear with me. Is this, let me see, maybe. Anyone on behalf of Maximiliano Perez, have we received any contacts? Nothing?
Nothing, Judge, for me.
Okay, Mr. Miranda, you may proceed.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. This is a breach of contract case based on a sequestration. We filed an original application for sequestration, an original petition seeking sequestration and breach of contract. We actually did recover the vehicle back in early December, and the vehicle was at the Los Moros address, which is the contract address where he was served. In all honesty, the vehicle has not been sold as of yet. I think the holidays interrupted the auction process. So when the vehicle is sold, and if the court grants the default judgment, obviously he'll be entitled to a credit for the value received. And I'll represent to the court that Mr. Perez will receive all due credits that he's entitled to. So based on no answer having been filed, we filed a petition on August 2nd, 2022. He was served on August 17th, 2022. The return was on file for more than 10 days when we filed this motion. His response was due September 12th, 2022. Obviously, he's aware of this because I actually had the writ of sequestration, the application served on him. So he was actually served twice, both with the writ and both with the petition. We had no response whatsoever. Thus, we filed this motion for default judgment. The certificate of last known address is attached. The certificate of affidavit of military service is attached to the motion for sequestration. So based on that, we are requesting a default judgment in the amount of $17,042.06 plus attorney's fees and court costs, subject to any credit that Mr. Perez will be entitled to when we are able to sell the 2018 Chrysler 300. So based on that, we request the court enter a default judgment today, and I can, if granted, I can forward a complete judgment to the court and also make any references regarding credits due, so the court is comfortable with that.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask. I didn't know if it was better to just go ahead and do it now, but have those notations. I'm comfortable with that. The default will be granted with that notation that the proceeds from that sale will be used as a credit against the default. And so if you'll forward that, Mr. Miranda, the proposed order that you have drafted here to the court, and I'll go ahead and sign off on it and get that processed.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Honor. Have a great day, y'all.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Who's next?
The last one for the day, Judge, is the bottom of page 8. I don't know if Mr. Gutierrez is here on that one too. In cause number 2022 DCV 2840 Portfolio Recovery Associates LLC versus Shellis Walker. Announcement of council, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Benjamin Joseph Gutierrez on behalf of Portfolio Recovery, ready to proceed on a motion for default judgment.
Okay, I can tell you right off the bat, it looks like notice of hearing was sent late December. Is that right?
I believe so, Your Honor.
Do you have anything showing that Walker was served?
That when I looked, I think this is the one. Let's see. My apologies, Your Honor. I think I tried to look it up before I sent it over this morning.
We're going to reset this for 45 days. I feel comfortable that you all have not sent notice of hearing to Walker. So we'll reset it for 45 days if you will have the notice. Notice of hearing sent. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?